So, how many cups you got next to you? How many you got? One. You got one cup. You got your cold stuff in it though. You're that cold guy.
I got the cold stuff tonight.
All right.
I'm wearing two.
All right, good. You're wearing two. You might need a triple. You might need to go triple on this one. Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, as we go over a very full game of a lot of stuff to talk about. Bruins throttle the Washington Capitals 5-1 in a game that had a ton of emotion. One team, I think, controlled theirs better than the other. Some great leadership, some awesome individual efforts. And when it was all said and done, it's more about analyzing, I think, how a team reacted to something than actually the game. Like on Nesson, we didn't even analyze we didn't really even break down the goals that much. We showed the amazing passes, the plays by defensemen from the Bruins on a couple of them. Just beautiful plays from McAvoy and Grzelcyk, to name a few. We talked a little bit about net front, but overall it was about how the Bruins handled the emotion. And we're going to get to everything. We'll do it quickly. Here on Morning Brew, we like to keep it to 25, give or take, minutes or so. Razor, you watched the game as a very well-educated fan, a highly educated fan. I mean, you have an MBA in hockey, having been an NHL player. What did you think of the game? What comes to mind? The one or two things come to mind when you watch that game and how the Bruins played and handled themselves?
It was their leadership, the top guys going out in the second period, especially after all that happened in the first period, to come out and not chase guys around, to go out and just impose their will, score 3 goals, play their game. We're going to beat these guys by scoring goals. We're not going to get out of our game. We're not going to turn this into a circus. We're not going to, try and get retaliation now. We're going to retaliate on the scoreboard. These 2 points are more important to us than them. And it felt like that was the message from the leadership coming out after the hit, after the first period, that we're not going to squander this lead, after a half-decent first period.
Everything about the Bruins' response, from Patrice Bergeron having a chat with first Ovi, then, well, I guess it was really Wilson at the heart of the time, but Ovi was there. And I think Ovechkin, when he realized it was Bergeron and he was just saying something, kind of allowed him to say his thing that he needed to. That's the respect that Bergeron has around the league. To the way that most of the other guys handled it, to the way that Tinordi got himself involved with Tom Wilson in just his second game as a Boston Bruin. Everything about how they responded, and by the way, winning battles to get pucks to get to the front of the net was part of that response too, screamed emotional control. And I love that. Because I don't know, Razor, if the Bruins lost their you-know-what, if that would have benefited them in that game. May have felt, well, actually, I was going to say maybe it would have felt good, but you know what feels better? Scoring those goals that you talked about.
Winning.
And taking the game as thoroughly as they did. Yeah. Yeah.
I was watching and I would have been much more concerned, and I was very curious in the intermission to see how they were going to come out. Was Frederic going to come out running around? Was Nick Ritchie going to come out running around? Was Tinordi going to come out running around, trying to hit everybody, trying to go after Ovechkin and Backstrom? How was this going to play out? Because, and I agree 1,000%, and as a player, as a goalie even more so, who's not really in that mix, I never wanted my team to go that way. I wanted, if that stuff was happening, I wanted us to go win 5-1 or 5-0. I wanted us to dominate. I didn't want it to turn into a bloodbath where you're trying to get retaliation for something that you can't really get everything back from. And I thought the Bruins handled it perfectly. And just right away with that Bergeron, when Patrice comes over and talks to you like that, and Wilson's not a young guy, but he's a younger guy, and he's trying to change his reputation in the league. He's done that over the last year and a half. He's he's on the Marchand path,
program,
trying to turn himself into a player. He's got himself into the league. He had his hits. He's trying to change things. And when a guy like Patrice comes over, and no matter what Patrice said, you could see it on Wilson's face. I could see it on Wilson's face, like,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't where I want to be right now. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be this guy. It's when, as parents, we tell our kids we're disappointed, not mad.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what that felt like. That Wilson was recognizing that Patrice was disappointed. Like, that's just not how we play the game, and
Right,
you're hurting the
Patrice.
union.
Yeah. Patrice let him know how he felt in the way that Patrice delivers things. All of Patrice's messages over the years have always been well thought out,
Hmm.
well articulated, very tempered, very flat. When I say flat, I mean it's just he's here, like he's just level, and it's impressive. And he elevated his game, and we'll talk about the hit obviously in a minute. We'll talk a lot about it. But he also elevated his game along with his line mates. I know Marchand got in arena first star. On Nesson, we gave Patrice first star for everything that he did in the game. I thought Brad was excellent. I thought Charlie McAvoy was outstanding. How about how good Yarrow Halak was, especially in the first period, too? I was really rooting. I was pulling for that shutout. I was. I kept saying to myself, come on, give it to him. Get the call,
Yeah.
right?
Mace Man was still up. My guy Mason was still up, and I was saying this would be a good. We're at a point now where he needs to make like 2 more saves. If he can just get through the next couple minutes here, he'll cruise into a shutout. And then after the one, I was like, he definitely needs to only give up one.
Yeah,
he can't
just
get
one.
to 2 goals. It can only be one at that last power
It was a
play.
good shot. It was a good shot by Verona, I thought.
Yeah. He made him think that it was going to go short side shelf, and Yarrow bid on that a little bit, went short side. But to your point of Yarrow, and we've talked about him a couple times now about how well he starts games. And he showed up on time. I thought the Bruins were giving the puck away a little bit early in the first period, similar to last game.
Not as
Couple,
bad, but similar.
not as,
right.
but similar. There were still plays where they need to nip this in because it was just uncharacteristic more than anything that a David Krejci backhand up the middle that gets picked off at the blue line. It's just not something that I'm used to watching, and it stands out to me a little bit more. But Yarrow was there, made the saves, Lars Eller breakaway,
Who's
all of
been
those
hot
plays.
for them. Lars
Yes.
has been really good for them, too.
And I thought he's been good the last 2 games. He was skating well and
Yeah.
being a menace out there like he can. So good saves coming out of that first period. I thought that was 1-0 Yarrow for the most part.
You're right. I agree. It was, 12-8 were the shots. I'm never good with numbers.
And the Bruins didn't sustain any pressure like the Capitals had on a few shifts.
No, they didn't. I didn't feel like that they were getting dominated physically, though,
No.
like they did on Wednesday night. So I felt better about that. And then what was it, the 14:21 mark, they get the goal, the Marchand goal, after a really good play by Patrice Bergeron and McAvoy. And McAvoy was fantastic in the first period. Charlie was great all game, but, he was all world Charlie first period. He was, I don't want to say he's a one-man band, but at times it felt like, he took that defense on his shoulders on that, you know what I mean? And said, I got it, guys, let's go. And he got the second assist on the Marchand goal. But what I loved about that goal was the one-handed ability of Bergeron to maneuver the puck, to use it on his backhand, to protect, first of all, to shield the defender, and then go to his backhand and then put the puck back to Marchand, who roofs it on the backhand there. And that's a tough shot for a goalie, right? Because you'd have no real good point of release on the backhand, but he just put it under the bar.
Yeah, exactly. And Brad pulls it to his backhand, which makes it even harder because you expect him to snap it forehand, and the goalie sets his feet, and then once he goes backhand, he just couldn't get his hand extended far enough to take that trajectory to top shelf, and Brad made no mistake of it. Just exactly the play that we expect those guys to make. The subtle play by Bergeron, Pasternak using speed, McAvoy using skill, and Marchand using smarts. It's how they play tonight is that perfection line that we've learned to expect.
And and what I loved about, and of course they produced so much, but what I loved about it, it wasn't like the other Bruins lines weren't doing other things too. It's just these guys came through with the goals.
Yeah,
it felt okay that they were the ones doing the score. It almost felt right. It felt right. All right. What didn't feel right was the play that happened to Carlo, to Brandon Carlo. And Tom Wilson gets in on the forecheck. Carlo was involved with, was it Verana, I believe?
Yep.
There, and he turns, and then he's down a teeny bit. Wilson comes in, finishes his hit. Bang, bang. Gets him. First of all, thoughts with Brandon Carlo. Right away saw him grab his head. You knew something was, you know it. You saw it. Two big men, two very big men right there. A lot of stuff to break down here. I guess the easiest way to see it, how did you see it in the sense of, I didn't like the hit. I took crap for this. I talked about, I don't know if you watched intermission or not. I took crap. I was talking about I'm not always sure what the league is thinking. I got to be honest with you. I talk to people inside the league, Razor, regularly. Sometimes I think this is going to be a suspension for sure, and I'm dead wrong, and vice versa. And I think the league, talking to some people there, they didn't like the hit, but they're talking about this might end up being, you got a body contact or shoulder that goes, then hits the head, and the head hits the glass. And I said, well, you've got not unsuspecting, you've got a player who's involved in something else there too. I don't like the hit, but I can't tell you 100%, buddy, that I think it's going to be a suspension. That doesn't mean that I think that's right. Please understand. It doesn't mean I don't think that's right. I think any hit to the head nowadays, I'm on that wagon. I've been that way for 2 years now. You might disagree or agree with me. I think any head contact now should be a penalty, but it isn't called that way anymore. Or not anymore. It isn't called that way.
Yeah, the NHL has an issue in consistency at times, and that's just the human nature. There's a lot of refs that are looking at the game a bunch of different ways. Right away, I'm thinking 2-game suspension, and I'm not thinking an 8-game suspension because I don't think it was completely egregious, but it was also nailing a guy and unsuspecting, unaware of, unable to protect himself in that situation. And then I go to next is when Patrice Bergeron talks to him, when Brad Marchand does an interview, and they're that upset about it. I go to the players. And as a player, when guys put themselves in a bad spot and they get corked, and you also know when guys take advantage of another player in certain situations. And that felt like Tom Wilson took advantage of Brandon Carlo in a bad situation. He was looking down at the puck. He was in the corner. He's battling with someone else. He can't protect himself from Tom Wilson in that situation. And believe me, Brandon Carlo would know if Tom Wilson's on the ice. The Bruins all essentially know, and they would protect themselves. He took 2 runs at Frederic already on the shift. They knew he was going out there trying to forecheck and get the game going, get the energy going, but Carlo wasn't able to protect himself. So in all of those scenarios, I see it as a small suspension on my end. I think that it's, again, not a 10-game, not completely terrible, but something that the league needs to get rid of. And Tom Wilson's is a good of example as anyone to get rid of.
And he's not a repeat offender anymore in the books of the NHL, right? Because it's been a couple of years now since his last suspension. Mm-hmm. So that plays into it, Razor, too. Right, fair or not, that plays into it.
Yeah, it's been 160
I
games
don't like
since he got a 20-game suspension. So it's like it's close.
Well,
it's
that was
close
like
enough.
2018, right? I think so.
Yeah, but it's only 160 games because of COVID and all the stuff we've had to deal with here. It feels longer. It's a long time, but game wise, they haven't played as many.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up earlier. Here's a player that's trying to get his image better. Mm-hmm. I agree. He's trying. Yeah. And I don't like. I think he got caught up in the emotion of the game, and now a Bruin defenseman, a very important Bruin defenseman. We don't know. We don't know. I'm hoping that he's okay, but we don't know. All Bruce said is that he went away after the game, to get checked out. But I've seen other hits in the league that I thought were worse. Look, it happened to a Bruin. Who was it one time? Was it McAvoy that got hit by Hornquist, I think, one time, different scenario. I thought for sure it was a suspension, and he did it. Now, I try and use my years with the experience with the league, Razor, about how they view things. And again, I try to talk to as many people as possible. I wish I could sit here and tell you I'm 1,000% convinced that he's going to get something. I'm not saying I don't want him to. I just can't tell you I'm convinced that he is going to.
Well, no,
There was body contact. Yes.
Again, I think we've seen it with the league. It's hard to really tell what gets suspended and what doesn't, and I think that's where you see some of the frustration sometimes from players, where it goes back and forth, and you're not quite sure what you're going to get, and I'm not sure either. I don't think it's I think there is some gray area in the play. You could argue it from a different side that says, maybe he only gets a $5,000 fine again. I just feel that with the injury, with the head, with the and that's what
was the head the
also
principal
to the
point of contact.
Well, it turns out to be, and it might not have been whether if it was open ice, but because his head slams up against the glass and it's Tom Wilson and his head, his shoulder hits it. I think, he's going up high. Listen, Brandon Carlo is not bending over into the boards. This is up high. He follows through high, and to the point though, I think it's a smaller suspension because of Tom Wilson rehabbing himself a little bit. If this is 2 years ago, after the 20-game suspension, he does it again, I mean, the guy's out of the league. He is trying to play the better way, but his emotions, like you just said, got out of, he might have let his emotions get out of hand a little bit. And again, him talking to Bergeron, his face just looked like a little kid who knew he did something wrong. He didn't really mean to. He felt bad about it. That's the face I looked, and that's why I think it's a couple games.
It should have been called a penalty. It should have been called a penalty by the officials to game manage better.
Yeah.
That's something that is so important, game management. And, I made a mistake on the air in post-game. Fully admit it. Hey, it happens. I screwed up because you're not they should have called they should have called it a major immediately if to utilize video replay. You can't call it a minor and then elevate it to a major, but you can call a major and review it and decrease it to a minor. I screwed that up in the post game. I admit it. My bad. My apology. Dale,
you're not perfect.
Larry, and myself.
What, you mean you're not perfect?
We got it wrong.
You're not perfect.
Yeah, just ask my wife. Yeah, I should know better though. All kidding aside, yeah. I should know better. I should, being a former official, but also priding myself on being right. But anyways, regardless of that, I should know better. But to me, what the officials screwed up on is that they didn't even call anything there, and then it becomes this "Are you kidding me?" type of thing, Razor. Like all of a sudden, it just goes. They're lucky that the game didn't go completely off the tracks.
They're so lucky.
But that goes back to
and it's so
emotional
again.
composure.
If it's correct, and if it's probably if it's 20 other teams in the league, if it's 4 years ago, Boston Bruins. Look at, it is an absolute bloodbath that's all over every media outlet across North America talking about what's happened to hockey. The officiators, the referees were very lucky that the Bruins kept that in check and didn't let it get out of control and played the right way. Again, it's a great lesson, play the right way, but we have seen through hockey history something like that happening and getting viciously ugly.
Yeah, and it didn't. I think part of the reason it didn't get viciously ugly is that Jared Tinordi did a really good job at 6:12 of the second period, appropriately engaging with Tom Wilson. I thought he did an excellent job there, Razor. An excellent job. Two big men going at it. I don't know if you declare a winner with either one. I don't even care.
Doesn't matter.
Honestly.
Doesn't matter.
It
does not matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if Frederic or Wilson. It doesn't matter. No, there's no winners, losers at that point. It's a matter. It's about the game.
Yeah, and it's about It's about stepping up.
Yeah.
It's about engaging, and it's about squaring up and doing it that right way. And therein lies, and Barry talked about this on pre-intermission, about why fighting still has to remain in the game in that regard, right? Because of just something like that. And didn't diffuse the entire situation, but it sure helped. It sure helped. The referees, in fact, were lucky that somebody did it with Wilson, right there.
And I'll say that's where if the NHL wants fighting out of the game, they have to make sure the referees make the right call in that 5-minute major or a 2-minute major. To your point, call a major, figure out what's right, and then get it. If you're not going to do that, then you need to have the fighting to corral it a little bit in those scenarios. And what better way for Tinordi to get the respect of his teammates? And not that he didn't have it, but that's just an ideal scenario. That's like, a trade deadline, a major, big, huge Taylor Hall trade deadline deal, and he scores the overtime winner in his second game after the deadline going into the playoffs. That's what that was for Tinordi. For him to be able to do that and take him on and be a big, strong guy, I mean, he just endears himself to everybody in the room. He comes to practice tomorrow morning. All the stress of the last week that he's had to gone through is gone, and he can play his game, and hopefully that builds confidence for him and the defense on the back end and going forward.
Yeah. I'm really happy for him. I was
me
happy
too.
for him.
Me too.
You feel good for a guy like that, who former first-round pick.
Yeah,
I would say has battled literally and figuratively to remain in the NHL. He's been up and down. He gets this opportunity due to the injuries to Kevin Miller and Jeremy Lauzon. It's not a huge, he's done it fair enough in his game, being such a big guy, scrapping, but it's not what he has made his name on, his reputation on, so to speak. But for that type of thing, really good. And, as an official in that moment, they went, let's go back quickly to it. They went to talk, all four of them. I'm guessing both referees felt that it was not a penalty. They felt that body contact was made first and then right up. I'm guessing what they said. Okay, is this foolish for me to try and guess what they are thinking? I don't know. If it is, it is. And then they go to the linesman and they say to them, "You guys see anything?" And the linesman, though, remember, can only call majors.
And typically they want to stay out of it. If they, right? They don't. If it's a high stick or something that they really saw, but that's a gray area. Those guys, they're not getting involved in that.
Right. So they didn't, and then therefore that's why nothing was called. So I don't agree. They could have easily said a board there. We slowed it down. Did he charge him? Well, we stopped. His skates seemed to be still on the ice. Could you have made up? Not made up. You know what I mean? Called it a charge. Nobody would have argued with them if they did. I always try and take both sides to think about it, to understand, and to be rational about it. In this case, look, something should have been called.
Yeah,
something should have been called.
It's the eye test for me. And again, I'm not. There's no fandom here. I played in the league long enough where it's not about. It just that didn't pass the eye test. The way the best players on the Bruins reacted, the way I saw the play, it didn't pass the eye test. That it was a clean enough hit to not require some kind of discipline. That's it's just that's what it was.
If he got a 5 in a game, what if he got a 5 in a game then? Meaning, that would that would have been a game.
I think that takes a sting out of it a lot more.
Yeah.
Then it's easier on the league. Now the league's in a tougher spot now because nothing happened. Nothing was called.
Right.
I think it puts them in a much tougher spot. If it's a 5 in a game, I'm sure everybody you can accept that. The Bruins can accept that and look at it afterwards and say, yeah, but now we're sitting here saying nothing happened. How does that possible? Now you put it in the league's hand, and how are they going to
See, the problem is now the league.
it?
Right. Well, right. Well, because the league is going to say they're going to go through it frame by frame. And again, I've experienced a lot of right and even more wrong as to what they're going to call. All right, let's move on from that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the second period. So 6:21 is that fight, and at 6:43, Trent Frederic scores a goal based off of a forecheck between Smith, getting down below the line, and so was Frederic right there. He comes back out front. Gorgeous pass from Charlie McAvoy. His head is up. He bullet passes to him in the doorstep. Thrilled for Freddie, and given that all the work that he's done, and to
Yeah,
get
and
rewarded like that.
yeah, and he wasn't the one going out looking for the fight. That was my first thought when he scored. Like that should give him more confidence that he doesn't have to be the one
Mhm.
running around. He can affect it the same way by scoring, and he did a good job getting his body around that tip. It's not an easy. I get it. He had a big net to shoot at. It was about 20 square feet, but he got his stick in a good spot. He got it in between his legs, and he tipped it in a with a heady
Yeah,
tip, with a little bit
with
of
a
skill
hard
there.
pass too.
That's
I
right.
mean, you want to
You
talk?
can
Yeah,
flub that. You can
yeah,
easily have that run through your stick or mess it up somehow. So
yeah. That
good
pass
on
had
him.
velocity.
Yeah,
That pass had,
and then the big boys showed up.
and then they did right. Bergeron, then Marchand. Uh, I love the way that Pasternak puts it back to Bergeron,
I
right
know.
there in the slot.
You know what's funny about both of the first goal they scored and the third goal? Both of those, Pasternak on the first goal, on Marchand's goal, he tried to get his stick in there
Mhm.
before Marchand got it. And then similarly, Marchand passes to Bergeron, and Marchand's trying to get his stick on
Right.
it. Both of them are trying to take goals from each other. I
Oh,
thought
that's
it
not
was
for me.
very similar. Yeah, exactly. Like they thought they missed it, but actually it was on the next guy's tape. It is pretty similar looking at those tonight.
I think were the Caps' defense exposed a little bit just by
They
the way that
were.
the way the Bruins move them.
I
They're big, they're strong, so they're less mobile at times. A few of them, and I thought
yeah.
the Bruins did a good job.
I agree, and we talked after the last game, like maybe man, the Washington D is big and strong, and it felt like the Bruins heard that, and I thought Marchand's second goal exposed that. Dylan getting off
Yes.
balance, and Marchand just finding body position, and it felt like Torrey Krug sending it to the back post on a power play
Yeah.
with Matt Grzelcyk doing that tonight. But I agree. I thought Chara got exposed a few times. I
Yep.
thought on the
I
same
didn't
goal,
notice him a lot in this series. Did
on
you?
the Bergeron pass, on the Bergeron goal, that was all Pasternak beating Chara on the
Yep.
wall on the initial play, and Chara couldn't get back to defend well enough. So yeah, I thought at times they would, and that's, we heard Bruce Cassidy talk about pace, play with pace. And if they play with pace like that, moving the puck up and down, they can expose a defense like that.
Yeah. Couple of players I want to go through real quick here. First of all, the fifth goal scored by Nick Ritchie. Thrilled for him.
Yeah.
Continues to look really, really good.
He does.
I mean, really good. I like both of his games against the Capitals. I thought he did his job. I really did. Thought he was involved, got to the net, showed some skill, battles. He's just looking good. How's that for simple analysis?
It's very simple, and it's also simple. My analysis is that he's finding a way to get open for David Krejci on
Yeah.
that goal. It's simple, but it's not that simple. He's getting open. He's getting on his forehand, and he's putting pucks in the net. So really
What'd
good
you think
job
of
by the kid.
Krejci? What'd you think? I
I didn't notice
noticed him a
him.
ton. No.
I noticed the giveaway in the first period, the backhand giveaway up the middle. I was like, oh, and then obviously you see the backhand sauce on the tape that you can go from that. But it feels like he's still working himself back in a little bit.
Yeah.
I having a week off, and
What'd you think of the scratch of Sean Corrali with Charlie Coyle being a mid-late day re-addition to the lineup off the
how
COVID
good is
protocol?
that having him coming off
Oh,
COVID protocol?
oh my
Holy,
God.
giving the old swipe of the
Yeah.
forehead, having him show up.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't listen. I think the world of Sean Corrali. I do. I'm biased. Love the kid. I love what he's about, et cetera. But I didn't mind it. I thought that he needed a game to kind of reset. I did.
I think Studnicka and I think Frederic have done enough to stay in the lineup right now, and that takes two of the regulars, quote unquote, that we've seen in the lineup the last couple of years. That puts them in a tougher spot, and I agree. I don't completely disagree with it. We're going to see Corrali back in the lineup. It's going to be a fluid thing, but I think at this point, Studnicka deserved to be that centerman, and I think Frederic's done enough to be on the wing.
Studnicka, 87.5 on the faceoffs. Efficiency in the game, pretty good.
Pretty
12
good.
minutes. Had a few shots. Continues to play longer.
I wish he had a shot on that first period and not
He
try to
shoulda
pass it to
he
Brust.
shoulda shot.
Shoot the puck. Shoot the puck.
Right.
Score your goal. Please score your goal.
Yeah. He brought it, and being a righty, he just brought it out to the right a little more, and that allowed Ovechkin for him to feel Ovechkin behind him just enough, a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep it in front of you, snipe it. If it hits the goalie, it hits the goalie, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
you know, snipe it. You got to get a shot
Yeah.
in that instance. All right, few other players just to go over. Let's talk Trent Frederic real quick. We already talked about the goal. I completely disagree with the instigator call there. He may have grabbed him, but come on. There was jostling. There was talk. These are two guys that you know the history that they've gone to before. Again, to me, that's poor game management by the officials there.
That's all it was. Poor game management. They're catching up to the game at that point. They're trying to nip everything in the bud and get back to even, which they had no chance of doing anyway. So I would agree. I understand it, but I agree. He didn't deserve that. And again, I'll go back to that shift where Carlo got hit. I was so impressed with Frederic not taking Wilson on. Wilson corked him twice. He chased him around the ice twice, and Frederic, in a 1-0 game at home when the Bruins started to get things under control, let it go. And I was impressed with that from Frederic, who had so much energy and really wanted to get in on that, was able to hold back and not get involved. So I thought Frederic had a very positive game again tonight. He just, he's taking good steps in development.
Speaking of development, Connor Clifton, 25-38. Nice game by Connor Clifton. What I really liked about the defensive game, we already talked about, top dog, McAvoy. But what I liked about the rest of the D, first of all, they came together, cohesive, after Brandon goes down, after Carlo goes out. But second of all, I thought their game got quieter as the game went on, meaning less turnovers, less putting pucks in the middle of the ice, etc., not moving out of position. I really thought the game being quieter was significant. Once the Bruins got up 2-0, for sure 3-0, but especially I thought 2-0 is yet. But once they did that bing bang game goal with Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand, I'm like done.
Yep.
Done. They did that, and the D took care of the rest. They played a very, very good game.
I didn't think about the D once tonight. I did not think on the defensive. I didn't think about them once, which is an absolute compliment for all those guys. Clifton made a nice play on Ovechkin, but they all did a very good job keeping it simple, and that's the key for those guys in a game when they go down to 5D.
All right, let's wrap it up with this, Razor.
Yep.
You have these two very emotional games, intense games. I wouldn't call them pretty games. I wouldn't call them beautiful, hockey at times. That's fine. Playoff style, whatever you want to call it. Now you got a game Sunday at 5:00. A little bit different time. Not the most odd, but different enough. Against a team that you haven't done that well against this year. They're giving you some fits. That you have nowhere near as emotional investment, so to speak, with them. Is this a tough ask for the Bruins come Sunday?
It could be a trap game. It shouldn't be for this Bruins team. You should recognize that all the points are tight. We should talk about, let's make a note. We'll talk about the 5:00 start either way on Monday when we have Morning Brew on Monday, because it is different and it's a weird time, but we've spent a lot of time on everything else tonight. But it is a trap game. It's a different game. And the Bruins have lost to these guys in the last trap game when they had 5 days off and New Jersey came in and they played well. So these points are important. You look at who they're playing. They haven't played Buffalo yet. So they're playing the bottom of the division. They need to get points and start banking them, because there's still 5 teams fighting for 4 spots and it's real tight. And these are the games where you're going to make a little bit of distance getting regulation wins.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how they come out, especially as being as focused as they were in this game against the Washington Capitals. All right, Bruins win 5-1, a game that had a lot of everything in it, folks. A lot of fun. So the Bruins get 3 out of 4 points in the 2-game mini series against the Capitals. They have the day off on Saturday. Well, they have practice, I believe, and then they'll have Sunday, 5 o'clock game. Razor and I will be back with Morning Brew on Monday morning. In the meantime, enjoy your coffee.